not easy.
So I'm starting. I was thinking about the song. Okay. John 15, 1 through 5. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Is that what's happening?
Sure.
Battle. I was going to say that. All right. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. Every branch in me that does not produce fruit, he removes. And he prunes every branch that produces fruit so that it will produce more fruit. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, and I in you, just as a branch is unable to produce fruit by itself unless it remains on the vine. Neither can you unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. The one who remains in me and I in him produces much fruit because he can do nothing without me. I ran out of breath.
Yeah, definitely common verse. Really, really good stuff here. Let us know. Why does it excite you?
It excites me because we do things. Wow. We do things. The only way we produce fruit is through Christ. Yeah. It's not like I'm producing fruit because I'm producing fruit and I'm so great and look at me. Mm-hmm. Like, it's so clear. Like, if you remain in, I am the vine, you are the branches. The one who remains in me and I in him produces much fruit. And then earlier it says, he prunes every branch that produces fruit so that it will produce more fruit. So, like, he's doing the pruning, right? And then remain in me and I in you, just as a branch is unable to produce fruit by itself unless it remains on the vine. Neither can you unless you remain in me.
Yeah.
I love that so much. And the fact that we remain in him. You know what I mean? Like, we have to remain in Christ. We can't do anything out of our own accord. You know, it's all through Jesus.
Yeah.
So, like, I love that. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I think this one is it's quite interesting because there's a lot of things that go into this. We talk about this metaphor of the grapevine a lot, right, in Scripture, how we're grafted into that grapevine, how the grapevine originally is Israel, right, and the chosen people of God. They are the plant that he's taking care of, right, but then we are grafted into that through Jesus and everything that happened there. So, yeah, really, really interesting over. What do you think of the first two verses there, just of that section there? I think that's where we can kind of start here.
I have to read it again. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. That's beautiful because Jesus is the vine, and then, like, God the Father is the gardener. Every branch in me that does not produce fruit, he removes. I underlined that. And then he prunes every branch that produces fruit so that it will produce more fruit.
Yeah. So there's a couple of different things that I want to point out that are happening there, right?
Okay,
so
you do that.
So we have the vine, which is Jesus, right? And then from Jesus comes these branches. So those branches are us. We are the people, the things that are coming from him, right? The offspring of him, if you want to say. But it's not just the offspring, but it's part of, right? We are part of the church. We are, like, all those metaphors kind of blend together, right?
Okay.
And so as we're coming from Jesus, we produce fruit. So we either produce good fruit or bad fruit, or we don't produce fruit, right? And God can only use one of those things. Yeah. He can only use the thing that is producing good fruit. So as we look at that, I think what does that mean to you that he's taking away these branches that are not producing fruit, and that he's kind of pruning? What does that look like for you?
The taking away feels heavy. Mm-hmm. 'Cause I don't know the theological context of this, but the fact that it says every branch in me that does not produce fruit, he removes. Mm-hmm. That hits hard.
Yeah.
Because he's the one that's doing the removing. Like, oh, you're not going to do anything? Get out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'd like to know what you think about that specific.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just reading it. I haven't done a ton of study on this one, but for me, I think that is interesting for sure. The way that we think about this metaphor, and it reminds me of a lot of other metaphors. So, for example, we see every branch of mine that does not bear fruit, he takes away, and every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. So for me, it gives us two things. It shows us that he takes away.
One.
Well, what do you mean?
Like how does he remove? That's what I'm.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, go ahead. Because the pruning, I have words on that too.
Yeah, so every branch of mine that does not bear fruit, he takes away.
Yeah.
So he's taking off those branches that are not producing fruit in any way, right? Which is people that are not following him, people that are choosing not to do the things that he's asked them to do, right?
You know what that made me think of? Deconstruction.
Yeah, I think partially, for sure. I think God can use deconstruction for good,
Yeah,
but you need to
absolutely.
reconstruct after you deconstruct.
Right. It's the reconstruction, the lack of reconstructing in some of these that I was saying.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think as well, like we see the other side of that, which is the secondary thing, which is those that are producing fruit. What does he do? Does he leave them alone? Does he like give them a little kissy kiss? Like, no, he
Or say,
cuts
"Good
off the
job."
bad parts.
Yeah.
So I think of this in terms of ministry, because I've been in ministry for so long. Like, we've seen this a lot over the years, right? Where imagine the church is a branch of the vine of Jesus, right? And then on that branch are several little stems that are coming off and producing fruit or not producing fruit. And so God will come and he will prune those pieces that are not producing fruit to allow space for others to produce fruit, right? And so I think of that in a ministry context a lot, where we've seen many, many times when God has come and he has pruned specific people outside of the ministry to go either to another ministry or to go and follow their own ways because that's what they're deciding to do, right? And so we've seen this a ton, where God will make space for these people to get thrown away or taken out, and then new fruit will come in its place and it begin to grow, you know?
That's an interesting way of seeing it, because I didn't look at it that way. I looked at it as God, he prunes every branch that produces fruit. So he's pruning the branches that produce.
No, he takes away every branch that does not produce fruit, but then he prunes the branch that does. So what is he taking away when he prunes the branch that does, right? So when he prunes the branch that does produce fruit,
Let me finish my thought.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. Finish your thought, and then I'll.
When he prunes a branch that does produce fruit, I see it in a ministry context, but I also see it in an individual context as well, where he may be pruning you in a way that is taking out sin and different things from your life in order for you to produce better fruit or more fruit, right?
I see. But for me, like, so the way I read it is he prunes every branch that produces fruit so that it will produce more fruit. So to me, it's again, not better, not easy. Our verse is that it may be better to follow Jesus, but then he's not going to just let you grow. He's not going to be attaboy, like you're doing a great job. Like, it's like, okay, you're doing great. Let me grow you some more.
Yeah.
Let's because sometimes the valleys are for growth, right? The valleys are for growth. In an actual valley, that's where things grow.
Yeah.
And that's how I took it, is the fact that it's not going to be all rainbows and lullabies, unicorns.
Sure, rainbows and unicorns. We'll go with that.
It's like he wants to grow you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was another verse somewhere that you spoke about in a different vein, but it was about how not everything is easy. It might have been David. I don't know. It doesn't matter, but that it's not just going to be easy. Life as a Christian is not going to just be easy.
Yeah, I mean, pruning hurts, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So as you take pieces out of your life, whether that be something that's really bad, right? Like sin. Let's say you're addicted to pornography, or you're struggling with lust. Like, these are things that God wants to take out of your life. And does that instantly happen when you just become a Christian? No. Like, when you become a Christian, you're saved, you're part of salvation, you are a part of that branch now. But the fruit that you're producing slowly becomes better over time, and that's why he wants to prune you so that you produce more and better and more and better. And so those things hurt whenever they're taken off of you. It's not just like this, it's not always just a great feeling, right? God doesn't always just get rid of your addiction and you never have a struggle ever again, right? Generally what happens is you struggle with these things for the rest of your life, but you get better at dealing with them and God takes them away slowly but surely, right?
Yeah, but I don't think it's just the bad, though. Like, it's also, like, he's just growing you more, you know?
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
But in doing that, that's what he's going to do. That's what God always does, is he takes away the sin in your life so that you can be more Christ-like.
But if it's bearing fruit, then how can it be sin? You get what I'm saying?
It's not the only thing, but
Yeah,
it's an
that's what I'm
amalgamation of who you are in total, right?
Yeah.
So in total, I am a human being who has sin in my life,
Yeah.
but that I strive to be closer to God in any way that I can. And I allow him to control everything that I'm doing, right? So that I can go to that place. So as I listen to God, this sin starts to become less and less and less and less and less, so that God becomes more and more and more and more and more, and the fruit that I produce is more and more and more. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
So it's not that it's only sin,
Right. That's what I'm saying.
but but that's what God is taking out of your life in order for you to produce more.
Or he's just trying to get you to be more organized. You know, like I
But
don't.
why is he doing that?
I just think,
Because in your organization, you're sinning, right?
sure. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. That's true.
So I get what you're saying. Like you're saying God will
I don't
use
think
these.
it's just sin. Yeah.
God will use these hard situations and
Right.
put you in those things.
Exactly.
But why is he doing that in the first place? It's because of your sin, because of your disobedience. So he's trying to get through the other things that you're struggling with by using these situations. Because the reason why I'm pushing back on that is because I don't want I don't want people to interpret what you're saying as God will just do bad things to you because he can.
That's not what I'm saying.
Right, but that's how it comes off.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. So I'm trying to not have that happen. So God doesn't just do bad things just because he can. He's not just going to prune you and hurt you to hurt you.
Right.
He's going to prune the things in your life in order for you to create more fruit.
Right.
Right. So what do those things look like for you maybe in your life?
Moving us to a different state. You know what I mean? Like that felt like pruning or getting us away from our comfort zone. Getting me away from like growing our business into getting a job again. Mm-hmm. Like those are all prunings in my mind. Also, like if we're talking about specific, those things are hard, but they're not necessarily sin that's getting removed. It's just they're hard things that I'm having to go through, and it's not because it's an evil thing. It's just a growth thing. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And then as well as like, unforgiveness and anger is always things that he's like pruning at me and trying to grow and make sure that I'm not sticking to those things.
Right.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I think on the base level, I mean, I think that the things God is always dealing with me are just small things. Like it's always like these little, like, do you trust me? Like, are you willing to obey in this moment? Mm-hmm. Even if it's a small thing, you know, like doing the dishes or like, you know, taking out the dog, like those little things. It's like maybe things that I have to get done or things that I know that I should, right? That's him combating the laziness or the selfishness that I have in my life. Mm-hmm. And so for me, that's really how it manifests a lot of times is in that way where it's like, hey, like I know you should do this right now. I know I should do this right now, but I don't really want to do this right now. But God is reminding me that I have to, you know, and kind of having me be obedient in those ways. Yeah, that's mainly, I'd say, how it manifests in my life for sure.
Yeah. For me, the highlight of these sets of verses is the remain in me, just remaining in Christ. Like, I feel like we're too caring about ourselves and trying to make it all about ourselves when in reality it's like the main point of this is for me is you can do nothing because you could do nothing without me. We can't do anything without Christ.
Yeah.
And there's another verse somewhere, I think it's Matthew, or it doesn't matter. Sorry that I keep doing that. Where it's just saying that, like, where we need him. We need to remain in him. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the metaphors that Jesus always uses, but they all kind of go together too, right? Like when we see him teaching on the boat when he's calling Simon and Andrew, right, and James and John. It's like he teaches on the boat and he's like, see this net? Like this is used to catch fish. Like, and I tell you, the kingdom of heaven is like this when, basically all these fish will be caught and the good fish will be saved and then the bad fish will be thrown, right? And it's like that's, it's a similar metaphor, right? Mm-hmm. Or like the wheat and the chaff, like it's a similar metaphor where he's separating these things, showing us that yes, there is good and evil. Yes, there is holy and unholy. And these are the ways in which they're separated. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think it is fear inducing in a way of like, I don't want to be the branch that's cut off, you know, like that sounds terrifying for me not to have a connection with Jesus and with the Father. Like, yeah, it's definitely scary for sure. But in this way, I think it's definitely more of a, Jesus is talking about it way more from a sense of you do belong, you know, and take solace in the fact that I am in you and you are in me, you know? And then we look even forward into John, into chapter 17, I think it is, when we talk about the high priestly prayer, right? And in there as well, it's the same, he has that same mentality of like, no, I want to have a relationship with you. I want you to be in me as in me and you, and I want them to be in us as I am in the Father. Like, you know, he wants this relationship to be there with us. Yeah, I think that's a major part of this for sure. If anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away like a branch and wishes and withers. And the branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned. You know what's better than getting burned? Subscribing to this channel. Help us to get to 1,000 subscribers, or follow, like, share, rate us 5 stars. It would really help us out.
I mean, we could keep reading. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you want and it will be done for you.
Yep.
Boom.
I want $1 million.
I don't think that's what he means.
What does he mean then?
If we remain in him, then we're going to know, like, we're going to be aligned with his will, not our selfish desires, you know?
Sure. Yeah. So it's not his will for me to have $1 million?
If you're praying and you're reading your word, I don't know. I'm not God. Maybe eventually you're supposed to have $1 million, but it's not like something, he's not a genie in the bottle that you can get all your wishes.
Yeah, I'm just using that because this is a verse that we know that a lot of prosperity preachers and people use this because they're like, whatever you ask, like, you're going to get it, you know, like, ask, seek, and knock, right?
Right.
But as we know, like, when you abide in God, the only reason why you abide in God is because you surrender to God.
Exactly.
And so anything that you receive in your life is only because of that surrender.
Exactly.
And like you're saying, anything that you do in your life is only because of that surrender. So as you do these things, it's not because you can do good, but rather that God can do good through you.
Right. It's the remaining again.
Right.
Yeah, remaining in him and seeking him to see what his will is, what he desires, and not in trying to die to self, pick up your cross and follow him daily, you know?
Yeah, and we even go on to the next section where he talks about the inverse, right? Which is, not only are you to remain in me and to surrender to me, but also there needs to be a rejection of the other things. Because when we talk about love, right? When we talk about love, it's not only that you're loving. Like I said this during our wedding ceremony, right? During my vows, this is what I said to you. I said, it's not only that I'm choosing you, but I'm saying no to every other girl on the planet, right? Because I love you and I want to be with you. I don't want to be with anybody else. And so, like, here it's the same thing. He's saying, once you choose to abide in me, and once you're living in that, once you surrender in that, there has to be not only a love for me, but a hatred of these other things.
Yeah.
And it's a righteous hatred, right? Yeah. It's a righteous indignation of like, no, I don't want to be a part of that. I see how evil it is, and it physically makes me sick.
Yeah.
Like, I do not want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Right? And so I feel that in my life so often. I think we both do. We've had these moments where it's like we kind of get reintroduced to what the world is actually like, because I think we're in a bubble sometimes of like
a Christian bubble,
just our own world, you know, because especially since we moved to Tennessee, like it's just the two of us. Like we don't really have much interaction with that many people.
Yeah.
And it's like when we do, it's mostly church stuff. So it's like in general, I think we're definitely encapsulated, you know, in our own little world. And so when we do see these interactions with what the world actually is like for example, like I remember in high school, I was sitting at McDonald's with all of my friends, right? Like we're just hanging out for the night. And I remember we were sitting down, and then another group of people from our same high school came and sat like in a booth next to us or behind us, right? And for the first time in my life, I heard someone talk about women in a way that I had seen in like movies and stuff, but I really did not think it was real.
Oh,
you know?
okay. Yeah, you thought it was a caricature.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like I'm hearing this person talk, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm not going to sleep with her because she's not a party girl and she doesn't want to go do all this stuff and blah, blah, blah.
Gosh.
And I was like,
In high school?
yeah.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
And for me, it's like me being the kid that I am, right?
Yeah.
Not that all my friends were Christian. Like I was probably sitting with like a Wiccan and a Jewish guy, right? Like those are my friends in high school. But we never delved into that world, you know, and me especially, like even if they did behind the scenes, like I was never a part of that. And so for me, when I came face to face with the world, it was like, oh, no, I hate that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like I want no part of that at all.
Yeah.
This is something that like I have zero desire to be a part of. And it's because I believe I'm in the vine, right? Like that's where I belong.
Yeah.
And so when I encounter these things, when we encounter these things, when we're coming home from church and we see a topless woman who's definitely like high on meth or something, right?
Yeah.
Like that for us is like a jarring moment.
It is, yeah.
It's like that is not the world that I am a part of, right? And I'm saying that because that's what actually happened a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
But that's a jarring thing for us, right?
It is.
How do you interact with the world like when you have to deal with those kind of things?
What do you mean? Explain that further.
Like because we are in the vine.
Yeah.
Because we do surrender to God.
Right.
How is it that you interact with times when you're encountering things that are opposite of, when you're encountering the world rather than what is in God?
You tell me your reaction, and then I'll go on.
No, I want to know. I want to know from your side.
I just don't understand fully your question. That's why I'm.
When you interact with the world, how do you deal with it? When you're forced to be in situations like that.
In situations like what?
Anything that has to do with the world specifically. So, for example, if someone were to come up to you and they're like talking about drugs and stuff, or randomly someone like approaches you and starts to flirt with you and is trying to like gain your attention, right? Or really anything, right? Someone starts talking about partying and drinking like it's a normal thing, right? Someone starts talking about homosexuality as if it's like a totally okay and normal, like everybody's great with it sort of mentality.
I probably don't react the best way. I try to be loving, right? Because he doesn't call us to like be, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. I almost said Satan. Wow. But like, I try to be loving. Oh yeah, that's probably it's not my cup of tea.
More what I'm asking is your inner response. So
my inner response?
So not necessarily what you show people or how you interact with people, but what is your inner response to those situations? Like how does it make you feel?
It makes me feel sad for them. Makes me want to pray, and it also makes me want to run away. Does that make sense? Like I don't want to be in this situation. You don't
want to have to deal with them and talk with them and continue the conversation with them,
right?
In many ways.
But it does make me sad and want to like, I wish they would know Jesus, you know?
Yeah.
Because ultimately I feel like that's the correct response, is to desire for them to come to a saving, what's the word? Saving
grace?
Knowledge of saving. Wow.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. So, how would you react?
I think it's similar. I think I run oftentimes more than anything because I am not used to being in situations like that. And running from sin saves me from participating in it.
Okay.
And so I think I do that more often than not, but there's been times when friends of mine or even people that are in church have approached me, right? And there's these certain situations that come up. And so for those that I have to stand my ground, like I make it very clear where I stand very quickly.
Yeah.
And so like even in our YouTube channels or anything else like we're talking about, even in this circumstance, like if someone comments a comment that's like way out of line, you know, like those type of things, I'm very quick to establish exactly where I sit because I don't want there to be any gray area in someone's mind of what I believe.
Sure.
When it comes to certain things.
Yeah.
So, for example, when we're talking about things of the world today, I'm very clear on where I stand in terms of, like we talked about on this podcast, right? We talked about, like a while ago, we talked about like Mormonism and things like that, right? While I love many Mormons, I'm friendly with many Mormons. Like, you know, I work with a lot of people that work in companies that are primarily Mormon. Like, there's a lot of different things that I think about when I'm in those circumstances, because while I love them, I have huge, massive disagreements with them. And if they didn't have massive disagreements with me, then that means that they don't follow the religion that they say that they do, right? And so for me, I would rather talk about those things than hide it to save face in a different way.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. That's why I said it would depend. For me, I grew, the difference is you grew up a Christian. So like these are automatically your ways that you respond. But for me, I grew up in that world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the worlds in the world. So my interactions would be more slow, but not necessarily conforming. Does that make sense? I stand my ground as well, and I'll say, hey, that's not really my thing. I don't do that. Or like when I first became a Christian, I don't do that anymore. You know, because that was my past, and some of my friends were trying to get me to do some of the stuff that I was that I did, and it would be like, hey, I don't do that anymore, but thanks for thinking of me, or you know, like I don't know, but I was new in the faith, so I didn't know how to be like evangelistic, you know. So
which is harder for you? Is it harder for you to deal with someone that you don't know, or someone that's really close to you?
Someone that's really close to me.
Yeah. What do you struggle with there?
That's I feel like King Saul, where I'm too people pleasy, where he didn't stand his ground and do things the correct way because he was just trying to please people. And I feel like sometimes I fall into that. Yeah. Where the people that I know, I don't want them to leave me. You know, I don't want them to go away. I might lose my chance to like, in my mind, I'll think I might lose my chance to speak into them, but then I never speak into them. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. So that's hard for me.
Well, on the other side, you feel like you have a more balanced approach. Like you have,
like if I don't know the people, yeah, absolutely. I'll stand on my like apologetic-y background, and I'll go back and forth. And even people that are newer in my life, that I feel more comfortable with, like I'll go back and forth, and I'll be like, hey, why do you think that? Let me push you a little more. But it's because they've known me as Vanessa the Christian, you know what I mean? Not Vanessa the heathen. So it depends. It depends on the relationship level.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that definitely is where it comes down to, because if I'm talking to someone who is also being pruned by God, it's different for me to be like, hey, like you got some bits that God's trying to take out right now. Yeah. You know, and try to talk to him. But it's hard for me to do that because I understand that I have bits myself, you know, like,
right.
You
and
know,
the whole, log versus splinter or whatever.
And oftentimes it can come off as a self-righteous stance, you know, if you don't do it correctly. When most of the time I'm sure that's not what it's trying to be. Right. But then the other side of it is like, who are you to talk to me at all? You know, and how do we navigate that as well when it comes to someone that you don't know or that is not part of Christianity, you know? It's hard. I think it's hard for me because I have spent very little time in that world. You know, like I've never been to a party like that. Yeah. I've never been to a club. I've never been to these different areas where it's like, I know. Or
you've been to parties like that and you didn't really fully realize that it was a party like that.
And so I leave instantly. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been like coerced to go to parties like that and I just leave instantly because I'm not going to be a part of it. Right. Even if it's church friends, right. Which has happened. Yeah. There's been plenty of times when I
was thinking.
Yeah. Like there's a time specifically that Vanessa's talking about where we went to a church party because someone had just bought a house and it was like a house party, and we get there and then we were there probably for 4 or 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden they take out like shots from the fridge, and like all these different stuff is happening, and it's like underage people are there drinking, and it's like,
Yeah.
like it's so confusing, you know.
And at that point, I also felt uncomfortable. Were we dating at that point or no?
I think it was right before we started dating, probably. But we were friends at that point, and me and you were like, that was one of the things that we kept us really tight, because it was like we both understood our values, you know. And while a lot of our friends, including my best friend at the time, right, like goes in there and is like participating in all this stuff, like I was just like, no, you know?
Yeah.
And then I remember talking to them, specifically my best friend, the day after, and it was like, dude, you're an idiot. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
He said that to you?
No, I told him that.
Oh.
Because I was trying to keep him accountable.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And he called me, and he's like, dude, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done this. Here's all the bad stuff that happened. Like, you know, I put us in a bad situation and blah, 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 right? And I'm like, yeah, you're an idiot. Like, you shouldn't have done that. Like, in a loving way, obviously.
Right,
like, he's my friend. He knows, you know, what I mean. And in all of that, like, I think that really taught him a lesson of being like, yeah, we need to be serious if we're going to be serious, right?
Yeah.
We need to be Christ followers if we're going to be Christ followers. We can't go back and forth like this, you know? So anyway, I just think it's important for us to realize that dichotomy of like, if God asks you to love, he's asking you to hate something else, right?
Yeah.
And that's just the truth. Like, if you love God, you will hate sin. If you love sin, you'll hate God. And so in that, like, what are you choosing, right? Again, if I love you, I hate all the other women on the planet, right?
Yeah.
Because I want to love you to the best of my ability. So that's what I choose, right? And I want to walk in that. So anyway, yeah, really powerful verses here. I love the just the messages that are all throughout here in that whole entire chapter of John 15. Really, really good. Check it out if you get a chance, for sure. Cool. Hey, Brandon here. If you want to check out this full episode, you can do that on patreon.com/thesnipelife. This is the best way to help us to support what we're doing here on the Better Not Easy channel. Thank you very much.
So just remember that following Jesus is better not easy.